Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com, the climate guy setting the record straight about climate. This video shows how NASA is wrecking science with their data tampering. This graph shows temperatures at Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. The green line shows the measured temperatures, and the black line shows the temperatures which NASA reports to the public. You can see what NASA's done. They've reduced all temperatures prior to 1980, and particularly around 1940 they made a huge reduction from what was actually measured. Now let's look at the size of the adjustments NASA is making to Reykjavik's temperature record. The graph on the right shows the reported minus the measured temperature. You can see that temperatures around 1940 were reduced by more than 2 degrees centigrade. This is a huge change which NASA is making. We should ask the question, are these huge downward adjustments NASA is making around 1940 justified? One way to find out is by looking at other types of evidence. The behavior of Arctic ice is an excellent proxy for temperature. And in 1940, it was reported that the North Pole is getting warmer. Polar temperatures are on an average 6 degrees higher than those registered by Nansen 40 years ago. And the ice had gotten much thinner too. So there'd been a huge amount of warming from 1900 to 1940 in the Arctic. And it was reported in 1939 that Greenland's glaciers were melting rapidly and actually faced the possibility of catastrophic collapse. And it wasn't just in Greenland, this was also happening in Norway. So we've seen a lot of evidence that NASA's temperature reductions around the year 1940 are not justified. It was clearly very warm in that region at that time. So why is NASA doing this data tampering? Well, the reason is simple. They want the shape of Reykjavik's temperatures to match CO2 theory. CO2's been growing fairly rapidly since the year 1900, and they wanted the graph to be shaped in essentially the same way. The problem is that there is no correlation between Reykjavik temperatures and atmospheric CO2. This graph plots Reykjavik temperatures on the y-axis and atmospheric CO2 on the x-axis. You can see that the correlation is extremely poor between the two of them. If NASA's climate people were actual scientists, they would look for an explanation of Reykjavik's cyclical temperatures that actually works, rather than the CO2 explanation, which clearly doesn't work. And as a matter of fact, there is an extremely good explanation for Reykjavik's cyclical temperatures. It's the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, which shows exactly the same pattern as Reykjavik's temperature since the year 1900. The Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation is an ocean circulation pattern which shows cold periods, warm periods, cold periods, and warm periods. It's very cyclical. And it shows extremely good correlation with Reykjavik temperatures. Again, this is Reykjavik temperatures on the y-axis and the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation on the x-axis. And the correlation is very good. It's almost 0.8. The Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, or AMO, shows very good correlation with Reykjavik temperatures. What about global temperatures? This graph plots in red satellite temperatures of the troposphere and in green the AMO. And you can see that there's a very close match between the two of them. We can explain global temperatures just by the AMO. So why does NASA ignore this very good correlation between the AMO and atmospheric temperatures and instead push CO2 theory, which shows a very poor correlation? Well, the reason is simple. Their funding depends on pushing CO2 theory. So instead of adjusting their theory to match the data, they adjust the data to match their theory. This is junk science at its absolute worst. Please visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science for a long time.